Stone Age, 3.4,300 BCE. Imagine waking up in a world where nothing exists, no tools, no houses, no written language. This was the dawn of human history, the Stone Age, where our ancestors had to figure everything out from scratch. The greatest revolution wasn't just about using stones as tools, it was about understanding that we could change our environment. Picture the first human who realized they could sharpen a rock to cut better, or the one who accidentally discovered that dropping a stone could crack open nuts. These weren't just practical discoveries, they were the first hints that humans could master their world. But the real magic happened around the campfire. Fire wasn't just warmth and protection. It was humanity's first social media platform. It brought people together, encouraged language development, and gave us more nutritious food by cooking. This better diet helped our brains grow larger, making us even more innovative. The end of the Stone Age marked humanity's first great leap forward, the agricultural revolution. Instead of chasing food, we learned to grow it. This wasn't just about having enough to eat. It completely transformed how humans lived. People settled down, built permanent homes, and for the first time had the luxury to think beyond mere survival. Perhaps most remarkably, this period gave birth to human creativity. The cave paintings weren't just prehistoric graffiti, they were humanity's first attempt to capture and share their thoughts and experiences. These artists were the first storytellers, using images to pass knowledge to future generations. Bronze Age 3,0,0,1,2,0,0 BCE. Think of the Bronze Age as humanity's first massive upgrade, like going from a flip phone to a smartphone. The discovery that mixing copper with tin creates bronze changed everything, not just because it made better tools, but because it created the first global supply chains. For the first time in history, people needed to trade across vast distances because tin and copper rarely occurred naturally in the same places. This necessity for trade created the first international networks, spreading not just materials, but ideas, technologies, and cultures across continents. Cities grew around these trade routes, becoming the first great civilizations. Writing emerged during this period not primarily for poetry or stories, but for something much more practical, keeping track of who owned what. As societies grew more complex, they needed ways to record trades, debts, and ownership. These first scratches on clay tablets would eventually evolve into our modern alphabets. The Bronze Age also gave birth to social classes and specialized jobs. Not everyone could be a metal worker, it required special skills and knowledge. For the first time, society divided into different roles: craftsmen, merchants, priests, and rulers. This specialization allowed for greater advances in technology and culture. This era marked humanity's first steps toward globalization. The trade networks created during the Bronze Age laid the groundwork for all future international relations. When you buy something made on the other side of the world today, you're participating in a tradition that began over 5,000 years ago.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Classical Antiquity, 800 BCE to 500 CE. Classical antiquity was like humanity's teenage years, a time of rapid growth, bold experiments, and big questions about who we are and how we should live. This period gave us the fundamental ideas that still shape our world today. In Greece, people dared to ask, who should rule us? Their answer, democracy, was revolutionary. For the first time, ordinary citizens could have a say in their government. But it wasn't just about voting, it was about the radical idea that humans could figure things out through reason and debate rather than just following tradition or authority. The Romans took these Greek ideas and turned them into a practical system for running a vast empire. They were history's first great managers, creating systems of law, engineering, and administration that would influence governments for thousands of years. When you drive on a road, use a public sewer system, or appeal to a court of law, you're using Roman innovations. This era also gave us philosophy, not just as abstract thinking, but as a practical guide to life. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle asked questions we still struggle with. What makes a good life? What is justice? How should we educate our children? Their answers continue to influence how we think about these issues today. Perhaps most importantly, this period showed us that ideas can change the world. The spread of Greek and Roman culture created the first international community united not just by trade or conquest, but by shared ideas and values. It was globalization version 1.0. ISA Golden Age 7 501258. While Europe was in its dark ages, the Islamic world was experiencing an explosion of knowledge and innovation that would help create our modern world. Imagine a time when Baghdad was the world's greatest city, home to the House of Wisdom, a massive library and research center where scholars from different cultures and religions worked together to advance human knowledge. This wasn't just about preserving ancient knowledge, though they did save many Greek and Roman texts that would otherwise have been lost. Islamic scholars took this knowledge and transformed it. They invented algebra, advanced astronomy, developed new medical treatments, and created the foundations of modern scientific method. The idea that theories should be tested through careful observation and experiment. The Islamic Golden Age showed us something crucial. Innovation happens best when different cultures meet and mix. Muslim scholars worked alongside Christians and Jews, translating texts from Greek, Persian, and Indian sources. They weren't just copying, they were creating something new by combining different traditions. This period gave us many things we take for granted: the number system we use today, including zero, star charts that helped enable ocean navigation, surgical instruments still used in modern medicine, and even the basics of modern chemistry. The word alchemy comes from Arabic. Perhaps most importantly, this era showed that science and faith could coexist and even strengthen each other. Muslim scholars saw scientific investigation as a way to better understand God's creation, demonstrating that religious belief and rational inquiry don't have to be enemies. Middle Ages, 500-1 500. The Middle Ages weren't the Dark Ages at all. Think of them more like Europe's rebuilding period, where a new civilization was constructed from the ruins of the Roman Empire. This was when Europe developed its unique character and many of the institutions we still rely on today. The feudal system, while often criticized, was actually a clever solution to a huge problem: how to organize society without the complex bureaucracy of Rome. It created a web of mutual obligations. Lords provided protection and land, while peasants provided food and labor. This system, despite its flaws, brought stability to a chaotic world. Universities were born in this period, creating a new way of organizing and advancing knowledge. Unlike ancient schools, medieval universities granted degrees that were recognized everywhere in Europe, creating the first international academic community. When you receive a bachelor's or master's degree today, you're participating in a tradition that began in the Middle Ages. This era also gave us crucial technological innovations. The heavy plow that revolutionized agriculture, the mechanical clock that changed how we think about time, and architectural innovations like the Gothic arch that made possible our most impressive buildings. The Middle Ages were actually a time of significant technological progress. Most importantly, this period taught us how societies can rebuild and reinvent themselves after collapse. The medieval world faced huge challenges: plagues, climate change, invasions, but managed to create new forms of organization and new ways of thinking that helped lay the groundwork for the modern world. Renaissance 1300, 1600. The Renaissance wasn't just an artistic movement, it was a complete reimagining of what humans could be and achieve. Think of it as humanity's first conscious attempt to upgrade itself, to deliberately break with the past and create something new. This period introduced a revolutionary idea that humans, not just God, could be creators. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci weren't just making beautiful things, they were studying anatomy, engineering, and nature to understand how the world worked. This combination of art and science, of observation and imagination, created a new way of seeing the world. The printing press, invented during this time, was the internet of its day. It didn't just make books cheaper, it revolutionized how ideas spread and who could access them. For the first time in history, knowledge became widely available, rather than locked away in monasteries or universities. This democratization of information helped create the modern world. The Renaissance introduced the radical idea of individuality, that each person was unique and worthy of attention. This wasn't just about art, though portraits became popular. It was about the idea that individual humans could shape their own destiny. This concept of personal agency and responsibility still shapes how we think today. Perhaps most importantly, the Renaissance taught us that looking back could be a way to move forward. By studying ancient texts and art, Renaissance thinkers didn't just copy the past. They used it as inspiration to create something entirely new. This showed us that innovation doesn't always mean rejecting tradition, but can mean engaging with it in new ways. Age of exploration. 1, 100, 1, 7, 0, 0. The age of exploration wasn't just about drawing new lines on maps. It was humanity's first step toward becoming a truly global species. For the first time, all of Earth's major civilizations became aware of each other, forever changing how humans understood their world and themselves. This period created the first true global economy. When Spanish silver reached China, or Turkish coffee made its way to London's coffee houses, it wasn't just goods moving around. It was the beginning of a worldwide web of trade and cultural exchange that we're still part of today. The Columbian exchange wasn't just about tomatoes reaching Italy or potatoes reaching Ireland. It completely transformed what people ate worldwide, changing human diet more dramatically than any period before or since. But this age had its dark side too. It marked the beginning of European colonialism and the tragic Atlantic slave trade. These events would reshape global power dynamics and create consequences we're still dealing with today. It shows how technological advancement doesn't always mean moral progress. The period also revolutionized human knowledge. When Europeans encountered advanced civilizations in the Americas, Africa, and Asia, it shattered their medieval worldview. They had to rethink everything they thought they knew about history, religion, and human society. This massive shift in perspective helped fuel the scientific revolution. Most profoundly, this era showed that no society exists in isolation. The interconnections created during this period made clear that human destiny would be shared, for better or worse. When we talk about globalization today, we're really talking about a process that began here. Age of Enlightenment, 1700s. The Enlightenment was more than just a philosophical movement. It was humanity's first systematic attempt to use reason to rebuild society from the ground up. Imagine questioning everything you've been taught about government, religion, science, and human nature, then trying to create a better world based purely on rational thought. This period introduced a revolutionary idea that humanity could progress, that tomorrow could be better than today through the application of reason and science. Before this, most people viewed history as cycles of rise and fall, or as a decline from a golden age. The Enlightenment gave us the idea of progress that still drives us today. The scientific method became more than just a way to understand nature. It became a model for approaching all problems. This new way of thinking led to innovations in government, political economy, economics, free markets, and social organization, human rights. When we talk about evidence-based anything today, we're using an Enlightenment approach. Perhaps most radically, the Enlightenment suggested that authority should be based on reason rather than tradition. This challenged both religious and political power structures. The idea that ordinary people could think for themselves and question authority laid the groundwork for modern democracy and individual rights. This era gave birth to the modern idea of human rights, a concept that all people have fundamental rights simply because they're human. This idea, though not fully realized even today, has transformed how we think about justice, equality, and human dignity. Industrial Revolution 1 7601 840. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just about replacing human muscle with machines. It was about fundamentally changing humanity's relationship with time, work, and nature. This period transformed human society more rapidly and completely than any previous revolution in history. For the first time, human progress became visibly noticeable within a single lifetime. Previous generations lived much like their grandparents had, but during this period, people could see the world changing before their eyes. This created both excitement and anxiety about change, feelings we still grapple with today. Urbanization wasn't just about people moving to cities. It created entirely new ways of living and thinking. Cities became laboratories for new social ideas, political movements, and cultural innovations. The modern working class emerged, along with new ideas about workers' rights and social justice. The revolution in manufacturing did more than just create more stuff. It democratized consumption. Things that had been luxuries for the rich became available to ordinary people. This created our modern consumer society, but also raised questions about sustainability and environmental impact that we're still struggling with. Most significantly, this period showed both the promise and peril of human technological power. We gained unprecedented ability to shape our environment, but also began to see the environmental costs of unchecked industrial development. The lessons from this period are crucial as we face today's climate crisis.